Okay, right. It's working. So, guys, just a little heads up. I just thought I'd do a little bit of house cleaning here. There's been an issue with there's been an issue with companies and licensing, which has forced a whole heap of companies. Last beginning of this year, it was Facebook. It's the reason why we don't stream live on Facebook anymore. It's because basically the third-party companies won't allow it, and it looks like Twitter may be having some problem as well. So it's a bit silly because you'd think that in this day and age, everybody would want their content to be shared, right? Because if I'm streaming to Twitter and Facebook, that means that Facebook are happy because people are using their system and there's no monetization there, so we're doing it for free. And the same applies to Twitter. So I'm really not sure what's going on with this. We'll have to look into it deeper, but it does mean, unfortunately, and a lot of you guys have been asking questions about the Facebook streams that we do. Unfortunately, they don't look like they're going to be back. I'm sure that we're going to have to look at a third party way how we can do it. But again, that's something that we're going to have to look at in the future. Gary, how are you? And how's your weekend? And how are you recovering?
I'm all right, man. Apart from the occasional mad headaches, I've got a lovely scar that goes right round the side of my head.
Yeah, I saw it on your Facebook wall, mate. I saw it.
But apart from that, I'm still here to tell the tale. So
good.
That's the most important thing.
And by the way, guys who are not in the UK, we've been having a wave of 90 degrees plus weather over the last week. We can't sleep, constantly sweating. We don't have
murder, innit?
Yeah. Unlike a lot of countries, like in the US and everywhere, we don't have air conditioning here in the UK. So while most of you guys living in other countries are able to deal with the heat, unfortunately we can't because our homes are built to keep the heat in, right?
Yeah.
So when it gets hot, we're literally trapped, and I have to go outside in order to cool off. That's how bad it is.
There's no air outside. All the air outside is hot, right?
I know. It's so bad, bro. It's so bad.
There's no breeze. There's no nothing, man.
It's so bad.
I know for a fact there ain't no sea near Boreham Wood, Apollo.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's
no sea breeze coming to Boreham Wood.
Honestly, we're literally having to, and I'm talking about 10, 11 o'clock at night, we literally have to sit in our garden or go out for a walk outside just to cool off because it's just horrendous here, man. But luckily, today has dropped. It's about 23 degrees today, so it's livable, it's breathable, and we're having a much better time here in the UK. But let's talk about Arsenal transfer updates. So to begin this off, I'm going to talk about a lot of people complaining about our academy, which quite frankly, I've never been one to buy into all of that stuff. And I'll tell you why. Then we're going to talk about Eddie and Smith Rowe. And then we're just going to come on to cover Calafiori and Merino. So that's what we're really going to do today. As always, chip in with your 2 cents. We would love to hear what you're saying. You guys are starting already. Cam is saying Crystal Palace reportedly planning 34 million bid for Eddie. If there's any truth to this, we need to accept Eddie's value won't go any higher than 35 million. But I doubt there's any truth to this. At the moment, and I'll be honest with you, they have been one of the 7 teams that have inquired about Eddie. To be honest with you, along with Wolves, Brighton, and whatever, these guys have been after Eddie for 2 or 3 seasons now. So it's no surprise that they've inquired at him. But there's no official bid, as far as I'm aware, from Crystal Palace, even though there's interest. So yeah, that's all there is to say on that one. It says a good move for him. Hope it happens. Can see Eddie doing well at Palace with being a full-time starter. Good fee for us and giving Balogun minutes. Yeah, and he goes, as for Calafiori, I love the signing. Just saying we don't need to roll out that he's the best player tag all the time for every signing. And 18, what's going on 18? He's saying, honestly, I think Calafiori, Merino, and Eze Summer would be a great window. I agree. I absolutely 100%. Yeah, because you know why, Gary? That way we would have addressed the defense, we would have addressed the midfield with Merino, and then we would address the attacking forward position with Eze. So if that's what our forward position looks like, I would think it's successful. And the other reason is because, and we'll come on to this when we talk about Smith Rowe and Nketiah, It's because Arteta will play them. Quite simply, that fact that he would actually go ahead and he would play these players.
Yeah, but will he though? He's got his favourites, and can you see Eze getting in over a Martinelli or a Saka?
Okay, so
Eze's at the stage of his career where he wants to be playing on the regular.
He is, but there's one thing. There's one thing we know, Gary. When they first took over the team, and Edu and Arteta was experimenting with Willian, Suarez, Mari, and all that, those guys didn't work. Those guys didn't fit the bill. But if there's one thing we know about them now is they've been pretty much spot on 10 out of 10 for every player that they brought in terms of Rice, Jorginho, Trossard. I mean, I can go on and on and on. The players that they've got to fit this mold of title running teams have all played, all of them. So with these guys coming in, I have no doubt whatsoever that they will play. And you know, I can see what they've done with Smith Rowe. It's been frustrating with Smith Rowe. It's been frustrating with Nketiah. I know, I get it 100%, and I agree with all of you guys. But the fact of the matter is, the manager felt that the team just outgrew them, and if that's the way forward, I agree. So if these guys are going to come in and they're going to do a better job, which we'll talk about in a second, then they're going to play. Sure, they're going to play. So first of all, let's start with the academy. So reading in the forums, Gary, and you've been in the forums as well. We've been reading, Arsenal's not doing anything with the academy, and when was the last players who came through, and yada, 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 yada. So quite frankly, this for me is just a myth. It's just a myth for fans who just want to complain about the club, because I'm going to put a link in at the bottom in the heading now. There we go. Join said I need a striker on top of that list. I think that Eze would cover the striker issue in terms of goals. We can say striker, but let's talk about forward play. There is going to be a forward player coming in. I did report that Agree was settled with Gyökeres over 3 weeks ago. Unfortunately, the price for him hasn't changed. And we'll come on to that in a second, because we may see some traction on that in the next 7 days. But overall, and this is for everybody who says that we need a striker, we need a striker, we need a striker. Over the last 2 seasons, this team scored more goals than any other team in history. So it just completely and utterly outweighs the fact that the need. I think the conversation would be different in regards to if we had a clinical striker, then will it improve our outcome? Even sure, yeah, it would. In fact, you could probably get somewhere between 95 to 100 goals. We broke it with 89 goals 2 years ago. Last season, 91 goals. I think with a clinical striker, you'll probably get somewhere around 95 to 100 goals. Would you agree, Gary?
Yeah, totally. And let's not forget that last season, Martinelli had a stinker, and he only weighed in with something like six or 8 goals or something like that, wasn't it?
6 goals, yeah.
Jesus, again, misses more than he scores. So if you're looking to take all this into account, the necessity to go and everyone's clamoring for this number 9, this out-and-out goal scorer, we share our goals around. So between Odegaard, Havertz, Martinelli, Saka, Big Gabriel at the back, whoever else, we seem to be okay in scoring the goals. And that's not even mentioning the chances that we miss. So if we've got an Eze, the Merino, and obviously Calafiori is already there, that would be a successful window. 100 million or 80 million pound for Gyökeres or Osimhen. Is it a feasible deal to get done? And is it a necessity to get done? That's the way you've got to look at it. But I'm fine with the attacking force that we have and the goals that we score. And like you say, it's improved for the last couple of seasons. 80, 89 and 91 goals in a season is not a bad shot. Considering we don't have that recognised number 9.
And if you go back to, I'm going to give you guys one of my favourite seasons, if not probably my favourite overall season as far as goals are concerned. And that was 2016-17 season. Incredible, absolutely incredible season for goals. I'll start from the bottom. We had Ramsey on 11 goals. We had Ozil on 12 goals. We had Giroud on 16 goals that season. We had Walcott on 19 goals that season. And our leading goal scorer was Santi Cazorla on 31 goals in all competitions. So when you look at that, guys, that totals up around 87 goals. And remember, we've beaten the totals over the last few years, right? But that's just with those 5 players. Like, forget everybody in the rest of the team. Like, when you've got a line and a midfield that can just all chip in with goals, that's what Arteta's looking for. And quite frankly, that's what he has. And it's not just 1 year. It's not a 1 year fluke. It's not something sometimes fans can bring to the argument, oh, it's only happened once, it'll never happen again. No. He's back-to-back scored more goals than any other manager in Arsenal history. Like, you can pull up any manager you want, or any strikers like Henry or Ian Wright or Alan Smith, or you can pull up Malcolm McDonnell, Frank Stapleton. You can pull up anything you want. This team has outscored the lot of them. The lot. So I think it goes without saying that you have to trust in what he's doing, because what he's doing is working. Will a more clinical striker come into the fore? Look, I think Havertz is a 20-goal-a-season striker. I do. All the accolades, the stats are there to say when he plays at a number 9 position over 90 minutes, he's exceptional. And the other thing that I had to add to that is always be careful, because you can get a nice shiny name in, but I can tell you now, as much as I love Alex Isak, he doesn't defend in the way Havertz does. Neither does Osimhen. Neither does Gyökeres. Havertz is your ultimate utility guy who will chip in with the tackles, duels, recoveries in a way that I've not seen any other striker do in the Premier League.
You say that about Gyökeres, but I did read a stat that he had more ball recoveries in the final third than Martin Odegaard.
And that's Gyökeres, yeah?
Yeah. So that shows you that he does do the defensive side. Maybe not as Havertz does, because we've seen Havertz sometimes appear on his edge of his own penalty area breaking up stuff.
Yeah.
True, so maybe he doesn't do it to that extent, but I definitely saw the stat that he had Gyökeres had more ball recoveries in the top 5 leagues. I think he was 1 or 2 ahead of Odegaard.
Yeah, and listen, maybe his days in Coventry and all that showed him that this is how you got to approach British football, because it's a different kind of animal. But on top of what I was talking about in terms of the academy stuff, guys, I've sent you the link, which is in the chat below. And I think the question is how many academy players actually make it into academy football? And if you look at the link was done by the BBC. It's a whole section story on it. And what it does is it shows that out of 1.5 million players who are playing in their academy football going into professional football, only 180 will make it. Those numbers are astonishing, guys.
Like
that is
0.21%.
Guys, 0.21% of players actually make it. And in terms of in the Premier League itself, about 4%. So when you look at what Arsenal are doing and how many players they've churned out, and you see players like Saka come in and Smith Rowe come in and Nelson and everything, that pretty much goes among the numbers. And now we've got a more valid crop of players coming through. We're going to have to see whether they'll be able to make it. And if pre-season is anything to go by, I am very impressed with what I see. The centre-back, whose name escapes me again, you'll probably know what it is. Yeah, that's right, yeah. He looks really useful. Waneri has been fantastic. But for me, my favourite player has been Salah. Salah is on a different level, guys. Salah, oh my word. This guy, we're talking about ball protection, how comfy he is, being rushed into the tackle, duels, a ball winner. He just looks like he's got the full package. And nobody's talking about this guy, Gary.
He's kind of gone under the radar a bit because everyone's talking about Nweri, Lewis Skelly, and Heaven.
The big names. They're talking about the big names, isn't it?
He's gone under the radar. Obviously, when we was watching the under-21s last season, we saw them three, Heaven, Lewis Skelly, and Namweri all the time. But this Salah-Ad-Din was I think he was maybe out on loan, or he could have even been injured, so he didn't even feature.
That's
but
right.
When I saw him play the other night against Man United, he looked a player. The way he won the ball back, and I noticed him and Namweri always looking to move the ball forward. First touch, first thought, can we pass forward? Can we play forward? And that's impressive to see. So the future's bright. But I mean, you know what it comes down to at the end of the day, listen, if you're good enough, you'll make it, maybe not at Arsenal, but somewhere along the line. That's how it works. To step into a team like Arsenal, you've got to be real top notch. And like you said, if it's 0.21% of players that actually make it, that ain't a great number. Do you know what I mean?
Right. So let's talk about Smith Rowe. Now, Solskjaer says, I don't believe in the academy complaining. And we brought through Eddie, Saka, ESR, Willock, Maitland-Niles, yet we don't bring in enough. Yes, I 100% agree with you. And that's the reason why we've just talked about it and discussed it. Because in my opinion, I 100% wholeheartedly agree that Arsenal are within the numbers that pretty much most teams are doing. And it's even harder, right? Because when your team's at the top, when you're a Man City, when you're a Liverpool, an Arsenal, a Chelsea, it's harder to get in. Even if you talk about Spurs, right? Spurs, they've been bringing in some players. Mind you, they just won the Under-21 league last season. So let's keep an eye on that and see how that translates. But I remember Skip, a big fan of Skip. I always thought that Skip was a player. He looks like he's getting shoved aside. And
I never saw that, mate. I never saw that in Skip.
Yeah, he looks like he's been shoved aside, and he's been their big guy coming up, and he's got nowhere near the likes of where our guys have got in terms of Smith Rowe.
Yeah, that's what I said. I didn't think I ever saw a player in Skip at all, man. Looked like he belonged in a Skip. I don't know about like being a player. Didn't see that at all in him.
Yeah, and then obviously we talk about Foden. Who else is there outside of Foden who's made it at Man City? Man United's come up with but Man United's always had a good academy, and kudos to them. But again, Liverpool's had a decent academy as well. They've had a lot of guys who have come through there, but have they really made it though, guys? Look at their starting 11. Yes, Trent, Robinson, but again, it's within the realms of what Arsenal are currently doing with their team. So it's no real big surprise for me. Solskjaer always says, I thought it was just me. I really like Salah. Isn't he a good player, man? He's so good on the ball. He just looks so tidy, and he doesn't lose the ball in possession. Really, really like the way that he holds on to the ball. There was times when we was playing Man United, and obviously you guys know Man United and Liverpool game in America has been really high quality, and talking about pressing. None of this, it's preseason, let's put our feet on the table and relax and go through the 90 minutes and work on fitness. It was pretty full tilt stuff. And that's what I liked about the energy in those games. And he dealt with it really, really, really well. And so, yeah, kudos to him for that. But let's talk about Smith Rowe. Now, I've always gone on record and said the team, in my opinion, has just outgrown Smith Rowe, outgrown Nelson, outgrown Nketiah, and I'm fans of all three of those players. If it was down to me, I'd love to keep them. But looking at the plan, looking at the players he's trying to bring in, they're going to be used a lot more than what the players that we love from our academy. And also, guys, to go on top of that, there's the sausage machine. Yeah, the sausage machine factory is you put the meat and everything aside the formula, you run it through the factory, you go out the other end and you ship it. And that's what we have to do with our academy. These guys are being shipped for new guys to come in. We're talking about Salah, talking about Ranieri, talking about Hayden and all these other guys that we want from the academy. We want to empower these players. We want to improve them and train them and have them with the first team and see how they can grow like the Sakas and the Smith Rowes and all these other guys that we've got. And the only way to do that is to make them a part of the squad and give them minutes when we can. And outside of Arteta, the only thing he can improve on there is at times, and we can all agree, and me and Gary have talked about this all the time, when you're 2-0 up with 5 minutes to go, or you're 3-0 up with 30 minutes to go, half an hour, that's when you blood your guys in. That's when you blood your young talent in. And unfortunately, in the first half of last season, Arteta didn't really get it. In the second half of the season, he started doing more of that. Gary?
Yeah, totally agree, mate. And it's a thing that he has to get absolutely spot on. I mean, we've all said, yourself, Tony, and me, we've all said over the last 3 seasons, Saka has just played far too many minutes, and it's no coincidence that we've kind of fell not so much last season, but the season before. We just hit a brick wall, and our players just couldn't run. We saw this season with Ben White. There was a time in one, I don't know what the game was, but he just had nothing left. He couldn't run. He was playing with an injury, and this is something that he's got to get right. You can say that a team has outgrown players. That's fine. That's evolution, right? That happens in every team from grassroots up to the Man Cities who are at the top. But what you have to do is, even if a team has outgrown a player, you have to utilize the player while they are in your squad. So for the lesser type games, the so-called lesser type games, I should really say, why can't you give Nketiah a run out? Why can't you give Smith Rowe a run out? We saw Smith Rowe come on, win man of the match in one of the games. Can't remember which one it was. Could have been Forest.
Luton. That was the only game he started.
Yeah, that's it. He come man of the match, and he was unlucky not to score 3 or 4 goals. Right, he hit the crossbar a couple of times, bought a couple of good saves from keepers. So that shows you that he's still a player there.
Yeah, got 2 assists in that game.
Yeah, so that shows you that there's still a player there, and I just think he deserved that chance to prove himself this season.
Yeah, and there's a good statement here. This is a Man United fan, by the way. He says, Smith Rowe, let me get this comment back. He says, Smith Rowe is not 34 million player. He's a 21 million player, in your opinion. Your opinion is pretty spot on in terms of market value. If you go into markettransfer.com, they value Smith Rowe at 22 million euros. That's 18 million pounds. The reason for that, guys, is obviously, regardless of his talent, his injury record means he's about as useful to a team as Jack Wilshere, and we all know how that turned out. And so for him, this is a good move. He's going to a team with quality players, and he's got to stay fit. There's no point. You could be, guys, you look how talented Abu Dhabi was. Jeff-René Adelaide. I could go through a lot of players who come through at Arsenal, and it doesn't matter how talented you are. If you cannot stay fit, you are no good to anybody, and you have zero market value. There's some players out there who are very high quality for on the scale. They're on the European scale, and because of their injury records, nobody would touch them. No one would touch him. And unfortunately for our guy, he's victim of that, which is a shame, because this guy, I rate him. For me, he's as good as Aaron Ramsey, and should have been the guy who was going to come in and take that 8 role. But unfortunately, it just hasn't happened. And
Apollo, as you're talking about injury stuff like this, my mind's just thrown back to like Robin van Persie, another guy that could never stay fit.
Yeah,
could never stay fit. Would be missing from. I mean, how long was Van Persie at the club? 7, maybe 8 years.
Yeah, but in the end, he did switch it on. That's what I'm saying. He switched it on. In the end,
he became fit, and then he became top goal scorer, won United the league. So when you get that chance to prove your fitness, who knows what could have been? Obviously, it's not going to be now because he's gone to Fulham. But I just think that this particular guy deserved that chance.
Yeah, Social says, never seen you guys before, just seen you on my timeline. I have subscribed. It's nice hearing grown folk talk sensible about Arsenal. You'll get a lot of that here. And
that's all we do. That's all we do, Social Johns. That's all we do.
We've been around for about 4 years, and I used to make videos, 4 or 5 videos a week. And I went through COVID, which was pretty bad, hospitalized, and I came off the worst of it, had a near-death experience. And because of that, I don't make as much videos as I used to, but I'm always going to be around. You're going to get game vlogs off me, match day, watch-alongs and stuff like that. and I am trying to make as much more content as I can, because I know the fan base demands it, and there's such an abundance of Arsenal channels out there that you're never starved of content, really. But 101's going to keep you invested. And the other thing with us as well, we're not like a lot of YouTube channels, because it's not just my voice. We have a voice of many, and we have a forum. The link is in the description below. We have a forum as well, and you actually can see the link on the bar, on the scrolling bar. And the forum's got 5,000 people on it, and it's busy every day of the week. We've got stuff going on there, and a lot of discussions, and it's just a community-based YouTube channel. And I'm proud of what we've been able to achieve in the 4 years that we've been doing that. So yeah, thanks for joining us, bro. And listen, tell us what's on your mind. That's what we want to hear. We're here because of you guys. We're here because of your opinions. Your opinions matter to us, and that's what we'd like to discuss. And so as for Smith Rowe, guys, the one thing that I looked at the video that Fulham put out. And normally when you see a player go to a club, you see he's all boisterous and all, you can't believe it. And when I looked at him, I was just like, this guy's not even smiling.
Yeah, that's what I said. Like, that's what I said to my sons. He don't even look happy.
Yeah, but listen, I feel for him, man. But because I know he didn't want to leave. I know he wanted to stay. But I think for him, going to another team, staying fit, playing football could only serve him in a positive way, because it means 100%. He'll be back to his best. He'll then be, again, a name for the England team. And so it's really, really down to him for the future.
You know, also, Apollo, just quickly, when a player wants to play, I give them more credit for going to play and maybe taking a bump in wages or going to a so-called lesser team, because they actually want to play football. That shows how much the game means to them. I had a friend of mine who used to play for Tottenham, and I bumped into him. And I said, "Oh, what's happening with you?" And he was telling me about they wanted to transfer him to another club, but he didn't want to go. He didn't want the fans to think bad. He was a bit of a fan favorite, and but in the end, he went because he knew that he felt wanted. And he knew that he was going to play every single game, week in, week out. And he ended up captaining that club in the Premier League, played for England, and just recently left them last season, I believe. And now he's playing in the Championship if he's not retired.
Yeah, that's what you got to do. Listen, all kudos to him. Let's move on to Eddie Nketiah now. Most of you guys know, one of my favorite players, because and one of the players I've been rooting for at the club, because every year as a player he seems to improve a different phase of his game. The last game he started for Arsenal, he scored a hat-trick. He started 10 games and scored 5 goals. That's one in any other game. But he's always done that. The year before, he was efficient, replaced Jesus for 3.5 months. When Jesus got injured, we had a 5-point lead in the table. When Jesus came back, we still had a 5-point lead in the table. Eddie scored 4 goals in 9 starts that year for Arsenal, but then he played in every other cup game. He started every game for the club in 3.5 months without rest. So that's not just 90 minutes, guys, 95, 98 minutes, every single game in the league, in the cup, in the FA Cup, in Europe. He played every single game. And actually came out of it with an ankle injury, if I remember, if my memory serves me. And the year before that, guys, we had the inept Lacazette, who scored 2 goals for the whole season.
Don't remind me.
And then Aubameyang, who scored 4 goals in 18 games. And in came Eddie towards the end of the season. In the last 8 games, scored 5 goals. Had 2 goals against Man United, 2 goals against Chelsea. Man of the match in both of those games. I'm just reminding you all because I know you've got short memories. And it just always been there for the club. For 2 years, he's bailed us out. We could have capitulated had it not been for Eddie. So there's a lot of there's a majority in the fan base that gives this guy no respect whatsoever. He's a goal scorer. He's growing in his game, and he'll do well for any team that he goes to. And at the moment now, Marseille are not coming up with the goods. They're offering 25 million, and Arsenal are looking for at least 35. So, and they're going to hold their cards on this one, guys, because remember, it's no love lost to us if he stays or goes. He's an Arsenal player. He's a valuable member in the team. He's proven that year on year. And Arteta would feel no way if he stays at the club. Yeah. The difference is because you're in your you're in your championships, you're in your FA Cups, and you're in your group stages, you're in your League Cups. Then he's going to play. He's going to get some minutes. He just isn't going to get as much minutes as he did before, simply because Havertz is the new starter and Jesus is now number 2. What's your thoughts on this, Gary?
Yeah, again, I really like Eddie. Again, another player that I don't think's ever let us down when he's been called upon. And in that season, when you mentioned about Lacazette and Aubameyang literally couldn't hit a cow's bottom with a banjo, this guy, had he been brought in sooner, we would have made top 4 without a shadow of a doubt. You know, he come in, scored the goals that we required. Chelsea, Man United got a brace in each of them. He was absolutely brilliant. And I find it so hard to believe that when we see Jesus struggle time after time after time, that this guy just doesn't get looking. But then when Jesus is injured, suddenly Eddie's good enough to play. It just makes no sense to me, right? It just makes no sense.
Yeah.
You know, that's like being in your job, Apollo, and then someone else is over there, but you can't do what they're doing. But if that guy goes off sick for a period, Apollo, can you do this? But it just makes no sense in my head. If a guy is good enough when someone's out injured, he must be good enough to play in place of that guy if that guy's not doing what this guy can do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and there's the thing. I love the way the Arsenal fans have said, "Oh, but he scored a hat-trick against Sheffield."
No one else did,
guys,
did they?
the last time I checked, there wasn't another player in the league who scored a hat-trick against Sheffield. And the leading goal scorer, who was Haaland, got 1 goal against them in the 2 games that they played against Sheffield last season. So, again, it's just one of those things, isn't it? Like, where we need to empower and support and glorify our players, not bash them down with every chance that we can get. So,
but then scores a hat trick and then never seen again for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I know.
From 2 minutes here, 1 minute there, 30 seconds over there. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's such a shame. So I really do hope that they do something and build on that. But guys, look, bottom line is, if the deal and the money doesn't come in, which is going to, which isn't conducive to his value, they're not going to sell him. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. One player I did want to talk to you about, Gary, and I just wanted to get your opinion on this, is last week, what are we? We're Saturday. So 2 days ago, and I know this from my sources at London Coney at the Arsenal training ground, we did call Manchester City and inquire about Julian Alvarez. And now, a week ago, he went to Pep and said he wants to leave the club. And a lot of players do. I believe that Man City, to my knowledge, have had 6 players that have told Pep they want to leave. Only 2 of them have gone. The Ederson deal broke down yesterday, so it looks like Ederson will be staying.
I think it was only because they wanted 60 million for him, though, weren't it?
Yeah. And then they went and bought someone who cost 11 million.
Yeah.
So he's staying. But look, do I think this guy's worth 80 million? No. For me, this guy's worth about as much as Zinchenko and maybe Jesus. Zinchenko was 30 million, Jesus 45 million. This guy's probably somewhere in between. So if I had to look at that and negotiate, it would be 36, 37, 38 million. Would I take him at Arsenal? Yes, of course I would. He's a really good player. Would I break the bank for him? No, I won't, because with that kind of money, you're talking about Osimhen, Isak, you're talking about Yokore's money. And I would rather go that route than go somewhere with Alvarez. But Arteta has worked with him, has trained him, knows the system. He plays with Pep. He defends from the front. He does everything that you want. Gary, what's your thought on this one?
Obviously, with Alvarez, I've only really watched him in glimpses, like when City have been playing or in highlights on Match of the Day and stuff like that. Looks like he's a decent player there, but for 80 odd million, not for me. Is he going to be the one to solve our problems, or is he going to be like another Jesus coming in, not a real out and out number 9, but someone that can play as a 9? Because that's the situation that we're in at the moment. We've got Havertz who can play as a 9, but isn't an out-and-out 9. We've got Jesus, who can play as a 9, but isn't an out-and-out 9. And we've got an out-and-out 9 in Eddie that we don't play.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I don't want to see, but it's true, innit? I don't want to see another. I don't want to see another person come in that's not an out-and-out 9 trying to be a 9. I want to, if we're going to sign someone, make it a number 9 who is the out-and-out 9, and then that team is complete.
Yeah,
so to me, Alvarez is a no.
I totally agree with that. I totally agree on that. And let's, before we get onto our main guy, which is Merino, let's really talk about Calafiori as well. Now, Calafiori, shall I get his name up here? Let's just see if we can get him up. Yes, we can. Now, with Calafiori, this is really what we have expected the team to do. And I've already made a video on my channel about him. So guys, go and check it out if you haven't seen that already. And I've talked about everything, kudos in regards to where his strengths and weaknesses are. And for me, guys, it's just an exceptional talent, tactical understanding, which is great for manager. You tell him what you need him to do and he'll go on the pitch and he'll go and do it. And you've seen a difference in Arteta over the last season. 2 seasons ago, he's constantly standing up, pointing fingers, shouting, screaming. Last season, for half the season, he stayed sitting down in his seat. Why is he doing that? Because the players no longer have to be coached on the field. They're starting to grasp it. They're starting to play fluidly because they understand rather than read and react. Read and reacting is something that doesn't bode well when you have a new system. You want guys to predict outcomes. And that's the reason why we're seeing these type of players coming in. The Mourinho's coming in. The Calafioris are coming in. These are players who understands the game at a technical level. And they're able to see things develop before they happen, which is why they excel in certain things like duels, recoveries, and interceptions. Gary, you're on mute at the moment.
Yeah, so I was just talking to my kids, mate.
All right, that's okay. So for me, guys, what I like about Calafiori is what he does off the ball as well. The way how he creates space and opportunities for his teammates. Defensively, he's robust. We know that. But I think what Arsenal fans don't realize is how he influences the game in different phases. And I'm talking about his composure, his consistent performances, his proficiency in dribbling and bringing the ball forward and crossing the ball as well. He likes to go wide. He likes to get out wide and he likes to cross the ball in. So he is effective on the flanks. Why is that important to us? Because for years we've talked about, and on this channel, how inept we are on the left-hand side. The lack of support Martinelli gets, which is why he's always had to struggle. We know he was successful when Xhaka was here, and that's because Xhaka was a stay-at-home player. Xhaka was a guy who played in space, which meant if you're number 8 and we want you left forward, that's where you're going to stay. Regardless, Xhaka wasn't really a box-to-box midfielder, was he? In the way that Declan Rice is. But so what he done well in terms of support and distribution. But Declan Rice came in at that number 8 and improved on that Xhaka position. And I believe that with more support on the left wing back position, your Zinchenko, your Timber, your Tomiyasu position, I think this guy would really, really, really improve on that position. But we don't know who's going to play left back. We don't know whether that's Timber. Timber's been quiet lately. You know, listen, I've not seen anybody do the things that Julian Timber can do. And that's the reason for me why he should have been replacing Ben White on that side. But after Ben White's impeccable season, one must say, is Julian Timber going to be the starting left back? So I'm really not sure what they're going to do with this, guys. All I know is that they've got 7 players on that back 4 line who can kind of all play different positions and spot in. So I'd really love to see how that works out. And look, last season, I told Arsenal fans, we need to change our mindset, guys. We're no longer that top 4 team. We're a team that's challenging for the title. So what I mean by that is we need to stop thinking first 11. We need to start thinking first 22, because that's what Man City are like. When one player goes out, another player goes in, you don't notice a drop-off. And unfortunately for our club, we've not had the luxury of that. When one player goes off, especially Odegaard, you just see a complete drop in levels, in desire, and then quality of play. So I think that we need to switch ourselves on now and think to ourselves, we don't have a starting player at left back. We don't have a starting striker. We don't have a starting left attacking midfielder or number 6, because we've got 2 or 3 players who can play there. And I think that a lot of the signings, including Calafiori, goes a long way into that. Gary?
Yeah, I've been impressed with everything I've seen, like clips of Calafiori. He's tackling, he's bringing the ball out. You know, everything that he brings is something that we have been missing in that left back spot. I did see something that was written the other day. I don't know if you caught it, Apollo, that was saying that Arsene Wenger signed Emmanuel Petit, who was a left back, but transformed him into a central midfielder. And he apparently advised Arteta to do the same with Calafiori. Wow. So there is a possibility that Calafiori can be the new holding midfielder, allowing Rice, Merino, and whoever else to play forward, and Timber then to come in at left back. I did read that a couple of days ago. So I don't know if you caught that article. But that's
I did. And he played the number 6 role for Bologna, I think it was 7 times in his time there. So he can play. We know Ben White did that for Brighton 4 times, but they haven't used Ben White as a number 6 for Arsenal. They've used him as an inverted, but they haven't used him as a number 6. Yes, he has that in his locker. And maybe, guys, he's a long-term solution for Thomas Partey. We don't know. But I think Arteta knows, and we'll have to see how that works out. But yes, I 100% agree that he can play there. I don't doubt that at all whatsoever. So let's go on to Mikel Merino. Now, I'm going to put a sheet up here because it's going to be quite a lengthy discussion. I'm going to put a sheet up here. I don't think you guys will be able to see this sheet in its entirety, so I will talk you through this. Let me get rid of the banner as well. Let's get rid of this. So, guys, he's circled in the red here. And so let me just go through what this means. This is in comparison to Declan Rice, Kai Havertz, Jorginho, and Thomas Partey. So when you look at the goals, he's got 5 goals. Havertz is not really a midfielder, he's a striker, so we can kind of really leave him out of this. But when you look at his goals, even though he does everything well defensively, he can score goals. He had 5 goals, 3 assists last season. But the main part of the strength of his games, guys, is duels. And that's the reason why we're getting a number 8 in, which, quite frankly, the team doesn't have. We do not have a player on the team that has this guy's skill set. And so when we talk about this guy, it's this guy contested in 350 duels last season. Guys, do you know how high that is? That's like 35 duels per match. Let's have a look at Arsenal's players. Here we go. Duels. Here we go. Successful duels. Here we go. Over 90 minutes. Let's have a look here. Duels per 90 minutes. We had Havertz at 22, Declan Rice at 13, Jorginho at 12, and Partey with 11. So this guy is on 2 to 3 times more duels than anyone we've got in our team. That's how committed he is. And when I initially talked about this player in the last stream, I said, if you watch Spain play and the Barcelona, the tactic called the Rondo, which is where they hunt you like a pack of hyenas, pack of wolves, and you lose the ball, they try to win it back. That's where this guy excels. If you saw the way how he broke up play in the Euros, he was the best player in the Euros at doing that. Had the most tackles, had the most duels won. That's his forte. Guys, he does the dirty stuff that people don't like talking about. Remember last season when me and Gary was telling all of you guys in the first half of the year how good Kai Havertz was in that 8 role and defending. He was number 1 in the team in duels, number 2 in recoveries and tackles behind Declan Rice.
But
And what
people
did
didn't
you
get
guys?
it though. People
They didn't get it. All of you guys said, "Where's the goals? He's not scoring goals." Mind you, he had 4. He did have 4 goals. Yeah, he did have 4 goals in the first half of the season. But all of you wanted to see the goals. And I said to you guys, this guy in the middle of the park has been exceptional. When you're talking about a Gilberto role, the invisible wall, a Flamini, roll up your sleeves type player and get stuck in, do the dirty work, the work that doesn't get the accolades it deserves. It's no one talks about this work because you're the dirty guy who does all the nasty stuff that needs to be done in order to win games. That's who he is, guys. And he's one of the best in Europe at doing it. If you look at his aerial duels, this is going to scare you the most. This is here. I know you guys can't see the text because it's too small, but I'll talk you through it anyway. Aerial duels per 90, guys. He has 12 every game. Where how many times have you guys watched Arsenal play and the ball goes up in the air and you see us half-heartedly try to jump up and win the header? Yeah. And that's because of the way it's built. But the Arsenal now under Arteta are becoming a taller, bigger, physical team. A lot of players are over 6 foot in this team. What did you say, Gary?
It's becoming like Land of the Giants, isn't it?
It is. And it makes
that's the way it was. And then it kind of went. Wenger started that with obviously the famous back 4: Adams, Bold, Keown, Sol Campbell, Vieira, Petit. They was all literally 6 foot plus. And then he changed it to the other way where it was like the small athletic type player. Now Arteta's taken it back to how it was that made Arsene Wenger successful, and hopefully
it is. And you know, Xhaka was never the greatest defender. He was always a guy who could pass the ball, but he did make some good last-ditch tackles when we were being countered. So, but the problem with Xhaka was always that he just didn't read the game as well when it was defensively in that 6 role. In fact, let's be fair, guys, he was a car crash in that 6 role and a liability. When Arteta moved him up to the 8 role, he was exceptional. He was really, really good and had an outstanding last year. But this is the difference between Merino and Xhaka. This is Xhaka last season under Bayer Leverkusen, where everybody said he was brilliant. Look at the stats here, guys. Xhaka, and his last year for Arsenal, Xhaka 3.6 defensive duels, Merino 6.7 That's twice more duels than Granit Xhaka. Look at the aerial duels. Granit Xhaka 2.6 per 90 minutes. Merino 11.2 over 90 minutes. That's quintuple more times than Xhaka. And it's not just about Xhaka, guys. It's Declan Rice and everyone else in our team. He's just exceptional at what he does in the middle of the park. And I'll go again here by saying this. In regards to Europe, this is where Moreno is. And I'm doing this, guys, because at the moment, the fan base is talking about Moreno. And they're saying, he's a no-frills player. I'm not really excited about him. I love the Calafiori deal, but not really excited about him. Guys, believe me, you should be excited about Merino. He was the number 1 midfielder for aerial wins in Europe's top 5 leagues. The best. When the ball goes, guys, remember all these teams like Brentford who play the long ball against us, tried to get Ivan Toney into the game, Dominic Solanke. Look at the luck that Ollie Watkins had against us when they hoofed it up to him. Because, guys, you have to remember these teams are not good enough to play through our midfield. Our midfield is the best in the league, regardless what you want to say about Man City and Rodri. Our midfield of Partey, Rice, and Odegaard is the best in the league. That's not even debatable. But where some of these teams started to have luck against us is just getting the ball, hoofing it up top to their forward. And those guys, an Ivan Toney, a Solanke, and Ollie Watkins, these guys are really good at hold-up play. They're really good guys. They're among the best in the Premier League at doing what they do. So this guy, Merino, adding him to the mix, Arteta, and he hasn't told you this, I'm telling you this because I can see what Arteta's doing. He's making us a bigger, physical, more opposing team. he's brought in the best guy at aerial duels in Europe. So if anyone wants to try that rubbish against us, we've got it tied up. Guys, Merino is 6'2". I don't think people realize that. He's the same height as Calafiori. He's the same height as Tomiyasu. Yeah? And he's had 50 plus more wins than Havertz and Souček, which in our league are among the best in aerial duels. Those two guys, Havertz and Souček, were best and second best in the Premier League at aerial duels last season. And this guy has 50 more wins than those two players. And he's had more aerial wins than Pinnock and Van Dijk. Pinnock was voted in our team of the season 2 seasons ago for Brentford. And Van Dijk is legendary. And also, guys, per 90 minutes, he's had more than Gabriel, Saliba, and Ben White combined. I'm going to say that one more time just so you guys, it'll sink in. Three of our defensive players on our back line combined doesn't have more aerial duels than what Mikel Merino has.
Yeah, so that's a mad stat. That I'm not really one for stats. I'm not really one for stats. We are good about stats all the time, Apollo. But yeah. I'm impressed. I'm impressed with that one.
So
just quickly.
No, it's your time. It's your time now. Yeah. You got the con. So what's your thoughts?
I've just been sitting here. I'm impressed with Merino. Watched a few clips of him. I think he could equally play the 6 as well as the 8 with his tackling and his ball distribution. Because how many times did we say last season when these teams are playing this high line and our reluctance to knock that ball over the top and get Martinelli and Saka after it? You know, he's got the passing range to split defenses on the ground or over the top, which is something that we haven't had from a 6. Partey does it, but Partey does it mainly between 6 and 8, not 6 to 9, 11 or 7, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So this guy, I'm pleased to have him on board. I think he's going to bring a lot that we've missed. But I've just been sitting here and I've just wrote a list. And assuming that we've got the back three, White, Saliba, and Gabby, with Calafiori playing at left back, with Rice and Merino and Havertz up top, that would give us 7 starters all over 6'2".
Wow.
In the team.
Wow.
7 starters all over 6'2", and then obviously you got Raya, midget keeper, Martinelli, Saka, and Odegaard are the other 4.
Wow.
So it just occurred to me just to figure out, you know, and that's not including Tomiyasu, who can come on, Kivior if he's still there, and Thomas Partey, who must be touching 6'1".
Yeah.
So what do you think of that?
Look, let's go and see what our guys say before I chip in. Social says Merino is a proper central midfielder. He's a territorial midfield. He holds the ground well. And that's what it is. Remember what I said, guys? He rolls his sleeves up and does all the dirty work that doesn't get the accolades. And I think the disparity on this, guys, is when we see Premier League players like this, I mentioned Basuma and a couple of others, they don't have the offensive stats to back it up. So what I'm saying is they're one type of player. They're a defensive type of player, and they don't give you much going forward. Well, this guy got 5 goals and 3 assists last season, and his forward play, which is the pre-assists, which Martin Odegaard is the best in Europe by a country mile. There's not even anybody close to Martin Odegaard in Europe for delivering those attacking plays. He's really good at that too. And you might say 5 goals and 3 assists isn't good. But when you look at the likes of, you know, before Xhaka's last season, the most goals or assists he ever had was 1 or 2 every year. That's the most he ever had until he exploded in his last year and had 7 in his last season. But this guy is constantly doing that every year. So you know he's going to chip in with some goals. He's going to give you creativity, and he's an aerial threat. The goal he scored in the Euros, the header, was exceptional, and he set that up. So I think, look, my overall assessment of him And let me go and finish off what you guys are saying here first. Says there's not a good comparison with our players. We play possessional ball. No one on our team should have a high duel numbers. We just have to win the just. Well, I would think upper on the higher part of the pitch in the forward line would, because when you're trying to win the ball back and we're playing the rondo, when we're packing like a pack of wolves to win the ball back. That's the reason why Havertz's number is so high, because him and Odegaard, they lead the charge when it comes to that. And of course, Declan Rice, having him in there just makes us elite. It really does. It really does battle the counter press. And when teams try to get at us, it really exposes what we can do, what they can do against us if they try to press us. If you look at the last game against Liverpool in pre-season and Man United, it was sort of to and fro, 50-50, both teams trying to outpress each other. The two games we've had against Manchester City has been a chess match in pressing and really pressing and counter-pressing. And that's the reason why. So this guy's brought in to essentially help the team do that, because he's the best in Europe to do it.
Apollo. Obviously, when the possession stats, they're out of 100%, right? So say for instance, Arsenal have a 70% possession and the other team have a 30% possession.
Yeah.
Merino is that guy that takes that 30% possession maybe down to 23%, and gives Arsenal an extra 7%. So it is important, even though we're a possession football team, to have the guy that breaks up the play to give us more possession, to create more chances, score more goals.
Yeah. And guys, the update, let me give you a transfer update on this as well. You all know it's been commonly put forward that the personal terms have already agreed. So that's done and dusted. I've been told from my sources that they've set up a medical date on Thursday next week. Now, that's just a booking date. Any of you guys know how football works at the training ground? They have to put slots aside because doctors and everything, they all have to book it in so everybody knows what's going on. So what that does, and that date can change, but what that tells me is that they have come to an agreement on the price, but just had the paperwork just hasn't gone through yet. So it seems to me, as far as what I know, that there has been an agreement made. It's just not been finalized, probably because of incentives or anything. They're probably working on the small figures right now. But it seems for Arsenal to go ahead and book a date for a medical, it seems that they may have come to an agreement. So look out for this weekend in the next 48 hours that you'll hear this one is a go and a green light. Now, my opinion from the player itself, I believe for me, when I've watched him play, I've only watched a few games where he's played for his club team, but watching him in the Euros, the importance of just holding the ball, he's a Man City player, really, if I think about it, in terms of holding the ball, keeping it, playing the simple passes, playing those touches, two-footed, and always finding the correct pass, always finding the pass. Never throwing anybody under the bus. You see some guys pass the ball to someone who's got two players homing in on him, and then it's them hospital tackles. He doesn't really do that. He's very, very secure with his passing. And although, as I said, Declan Rice blew away Xhaka's numbers last season, the recoveries, drills, and tackles, Merino has got more athletic gifts to him in terms of the way how he moves around on the field, his range, how he spots plays developing. He's just the guy who's going to give you that direct engagement, and he's a bully. He leans on big players. If you talk to me about physical players in the game, and there's a few of them, there's a couple that you lot don't like. Bruno Gomes is one of them. This guy matched up with a Bruno Gomes would be a nightmare because he jumps on bullies. Yeah, he leans on them. He challenges them in every single aerial situation, and players bounce off him. As I said, 6'2", very physical, and his level of anticipation and engagement with the midfield, it just really shows his quality. He comes alive quickly in these games, and that's why his duel numbers are so high. And I've watched his leverage and his strength and the way he shoves off players, and he's very effective. For me, though, my question, Gary, is the system. He fits very well in the system because it's that Spanish type of system that we play. It's a 4-3-3 base, and regardless whether we attack or defend, it shifts to a 4-2-3-1, or it will shift to a 2-4-4, which is how Holland used to play in the 70s. And so also in that diamond, it shifts. It constantly shifts. That's the reason why people are when they talk about Arsenal as a 4-3-3, no, it's a system that shifts depending on the phase of the game, depending on the press, depending on whether we're attacking, depending on whether we're defending, depending on whether we're counter-pressing. We could play 4 different formations in one game, and the players have to know how that works. And for all of you guys who know about tactics, that's the reason why Arteta over those years was standing up, was screaming, was pointing fingers, was shouting, because what he's trying to do is direct these young players into what they're supposed to be doing. He's doing less of that now. And that's because the players are starting to not think about it, and they're starting to react to situations much quicker.
It's repetitive, isn't it? So after a while, it should become second nature, and you think, well, why am I here? I should be over there. And then you correct yourself, and that the manager has less to do.
That's right. That's right. And it's important, guys, because when I talk about the top games against Man United, against Liverpool, against Manchester City, and the games we played in the Champions League, a lot of those games, guys, is chess matches. It's about how do we take advantage of mismatches, particularly with tough opponents? How do we go into transition far more quickly, offer the support? And the key word here is offer overloads. And when teams try to overload us, how do we counter it? So this guy is probably the most important signing in the summer in regards to excelling the way how we play, the way how we want to dominate teams. Gary?
Yeah, I think he's going to be extremely important in whichever system Arteta chooses to play. And when he's on the field, I'm not sure if he's going to be a starter all the time, but when he's on the field, he's going to be really important. You know, his passing range is phenomenal. His tackling is really good. He wins balls in the air, little flick-ons and such. But I think he's going to have a lot to do with getting runners to go past him, because we don't seem to do enough of that. We don't seem to get Martinelli and Saka on those little diagonals. No, like your favourite player, Phil Walcott-esque type runs from out to in. For a guy that, you know, can play that killer ball, whether it be in the air or on the ground, in between fullback and centre back. We need these runs or a number 9 to make the run to get fed. But I'm looking really forward to seeing this guy in an Arsenal shirt next season, and I think he's going to be a big hit. And for a bargain fee of 30 million euros,
that's astonishing, isn't it?
That's even better, isn't it?
Yeah, I looked at his transfer.com and it's around 40 million euros. So whatever Arteta's doing there, he's working wonders, man.
And not only that, let's forget the guy had pretty much already gone to Barcelona.
Yes,
when Arteta called him and said, "Look, we want you, blah blah blah. This is this, this is that," and the player to turn around and went to Barca. I'm going North London, mate.
So, guys, that's pretty much it for today. The one thing that I do want to say to you guys is I have had questions about Victor Gyökeres, and because I was one of the first to broke on the internet that he had agreed the fee, those guys, Colin and Sophie, got back to me from the training ground and said he's agreed personal terms. But nothing has really happened and progress for that, simply because Sporting Lisbon have not changed their stance and dropped their price. And so it's a stalemate. And remember, guys, there was other teams like PSG and Liverpool who were in for him, and those teams as well have pulled away. They pulled away for 2 reasons. 1, because the price hasn't dropped. 2, because the players already committed themselves to Arsenal. So the situation right now with Victor Gyökeres is, I think that once Sporting drops their demands and once the Merino deal gets tied up, then I think we'll see a little bit more traction. But do be aware, if the demands to him does not drop, Arsenal will not be going in for him. It's just one of those things. They're working on a tight budget. Now, they do have money that they can spend, Arsenal, but because of the initial meeting, I think that Edu has got to a point, him and Tim Lewis have said, we need to recuperate some of the costs because we spent an awful lot of money over the years. And over the years, financially, the team have filed negative losses, right? So at point in time, a business can't be sustainable if every year you're losing money. So I think even though the owners, the Josh Kroenke, has said money's available if you want it, I think they're being very careful in saying, all right, let's try to see if we can self-manage this. Let's try and see if we get a 35 million for Eddie, 35 for Smith Rowe, that's 70 million. That's the cost of Mikel Merino and Ricardo Calafiori. So that means that you've practically gone to a negative in and out. And remember, we started the summer in the red, didn't we? We're 30 million down because of the David Raya deal. Yeah. So before the summer started, we were already in deficit. So there's things that are being managed here. They've got the money to pull off a big deal, guys. It's there. It's just they're managing the situation. And I know you guys sometimes, in fact, I think the fan base has been pretty good this season about it. Normally there's a big frustration is, where's the big signing? Where's the new guy? Well, I want to see 100 million. But I think you guys have been really good, really patient in terms of how they've gone about and done their business, because we know Arsenal want to win. The frustration with the fans in the past has always been, we lack ambition. You can't say that about these guys now. There's not one of you that can tell me that we lack ambition, because we've proved to you that we don't lack ambition, that we're very ambitious. We want to win. We want to get the best players in the world, and we're going to make an effort to do that. So it's just a bit of patience on Victor Gyökeres, guys. From where I sit, I think it's a 70% deal if I looked at percentage right now in terms of being done. Because, look, Sporting, this is the most money they're ever going to get for the player. It goes downhill from here because he had such an exceptional season with all those goals. And strike while the iron's hot when your team's like that. Take what you can get and then move on and build your team. And so just look for that one to gain traction. Otherwise, guys, the other one is Eze. Keep your eye on Eze, because I believe that is a simple deal to do. The personal terms are simple. It's a release clause of 60 million, and it's a simple deal to do.
Well, with Eze, you could literally go, there's Nketiah, and we'll give you 20 million.
You could. It depends on Eddie now, because the one thing I notice about Eddie, as I said, seven teams have come in for Eddie. 5 of those are Premier League teams. And I think where he is at the moment now is he wants to go abroad. I think that's where he is at the moment. So his interest, obviously, in Marseille has been so high. I believe the other team could be in Belgium. I'm not quite sure who they was, but I did hear it mentioned a couple of weeks back. But the whole prefla load of teams, Fulham, Wolves, Brighton, Crystal Palace, there's a trailer load of teams that want him. But for some reason, I think what it is he loves Arsenal so much. They saved his career. When he left Chelsea when he was 14, he thought he was done. And when Arsenal brought him in at such a young age, they really, really... And it wasn't them just bringing it in. They trusted him. When Arteta saw him play when he came back from Leeds, he was like, why isn't this guy playing? When I remember he came back from Leeds from loan, and they'd done all the paperwork to send him out on loan again. And he trained with the team for 2 days, and Arteta was like, how is this guy being sent out on loan? Why isn't Eddie Nketiah playing for the first team? And
but then doesn't play him when needed.
Well, no, he's played for 3 years solid, hasn't he? He's done what Arteta's needed to do. And then I go back to my statement, Gary, in saying that sometimes we've got to think that the Nelsons and the Smith Rowes and the Eddies, maybe the team has just outgrown them. And so to an extent, Eddie never has that problem because he did play him. Eddie's done a whole load of minutes with Arteta and started a whole load of games, scored a ton of goals, unlike Reece Nelson, who just, quite frankly, hasn't played at all, and Smith Rowe, who's been injured, and that's on Smith Rowe. But I think with Eddie, the thing is he has played. He's played well. He's a proven goal scorer at this level. And not just that, he's growing as a player in link play, in defensive pressing, and all those other things. He's a complete package. And he's young, he's growing. And I think that, for me, there's a place on the team for him. It's just not as a starter, which I've always kind of agreed with. I've never been bothered with the fact of him playing a backup role. It's never bothered me in the slightest.
Yeah, it's okay, like playing the backup role, but when you bring the guy on with like 2 minutes to go when we're losing 2-1, what's he going to do in 2-3 minutes?
Yeah,
Give him
I know.
That's where I'm at with it. You know, that's the bit that I don't understand. Like I said, good enough to play when Jesus is out for 3 months. Played with an ankle injury, still played 95 minutes every game. But you can't give this guy 15, 20 minutes to score a goal. But you expect him to do it in 2 or 3.
Socials has a question. He says, so you think we picked Eze over Neto? So from I'm saying that because of what I'm aware of. I'm only aware that we've contacted Neto's agent once, and we've spoken to Eze's agent 3 times. So that tells me that that we have a big interest in Eze. I think for Eze, from what I was aware about 2 weeks ago, he wanted to see what was going on in the market, what was available. And obviously there's that thing about him coming back, whereas the story with Eddie Nketiah is Arsenal was his savior. They picked him, they chose him. When Chelsea gave up on him, they gave him a chance. With Eze, I think it's the other way around, where Arsenal didn't really give him the chance and didn't really trust him. And so there's that thing as is he going to come back? And that's on Eze, and only he knows. I mean, nobody knows where his mind and heart is in regards to coming back to Arsenal. Only he knows. So that's as much as we know, is that they are talking to his agent, and so they're really hot on him at the moment. He says, I wanted Eze last season before Havertz. Bring him home.
I would take Eze over Neto simply because Neto is always injured.
Yeah. Why get rid of a Smith Rowe injury-prone player to bring in another?
Especially for 50, 60 million. It's that's bad business, man. Bad business. And we're not that team anymore. We don't sign that guy with a broken back.
What's that guy? Was it Kim Källström or something like that?
Kim Källström, come with the fracture in his back, in it. Played
never again.
The Dennis Suarez character, who was always injured. We don't.
Oh my God! How far has this team come? It's unbelievable. Right, Gary. Any closing comments from you?
No. So far, it's been. Well, yeah. Sorry, so far, I think it's been a really good window. We've signed a left-sided defender, which we've been crying out for a good few seasons now. So happy with that. Merino looks like a real steal at 30 million euros, and a player that we've been missing, who's an upgrade on Xhaka and maybe even Declan Rice in the 8, but can also play the 6. But best of all, good to see some new people on the channel. Welcome to you all. And
socials, I know socials is all that, man.
We hope you stay with us during the season, and we look forward to your input. And Cam, you're still the best. We still love you the most.
Excellent, guys. Listen, we'll be back with you as soon as things start to hot up. I am going, for those of you who are on the forum, on the 101 Arsenal forum on Facebook, I'm going to be doing the Fantasy League football today, which we play every year. It's a good bit of fun and banter.
I might join in this year.
I'm gonna set that up to today. And so, guys, listen, we'll be back with you as soon as some more news drops. I'll speak to you later, man. Peace out.
What we doing Wednesday?
Wednesday is we're gonna stream that. We're gonna stream that live.
Yeah, I'm actually going. But,
you're going to that game?
Yeah, I'm going. Yeah, I bought tickets before I went into hospital, didn't I? So
nice. Yeah,
I should be going to that. Yeah.
Excellent. All right, then, guys. Speak to you in the next one. Nice.
See you later, guys. See you, Apollo.
All right, nice one, mate.